Hello, welcome back to part 2 of Cartoons at the Movies. Part 1 was supposed to be entirely movies that came out at the cinemas, whereas in this one, we're going to be sticking just to TV and streaming movies. If you've seen part 1, you know what we're doing, so I don't need to explain it, so we're just gonna get straight into it.
How do you think these will make me look? Like a total...
So, starting off with my childhood favorite, Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix, which, just like with anything that I watched as a child, I probably saw about 5 trillion times, give or take, and yet I still really enjoyed rewatching it for this video. This one was released between seasons 3 and 4 of the show, although I think some people consider it to be the series finale anyway. The plot of this one is that after a fight with Dr. Animo, Ben's Omnitrix gets set to self-destruct, and so he has to go to space to try and find the creator of the Omnitrix to deactivate it. And it gives it this real sense of being like an adventure with it being away from Earth and Grandpa Max, and they also add in the extra thing of like Ben can't transform into any aliens or it'll speed up the countdown, which I think was a really neat idea, even though as a kid I just wanted to see him turn into more aliens. Oh, but don't worry, he still does.
Ben, no! The self-destruct will accelerate!
I don't care!
It's basically like 3 episodes smushed together, which I think is how it was aired on Cartoon Network at some point, but I think it's watched a lot better altogether as a movie. No bias, of course. It's not the longest cartoon movie, but they do pack quite a lot into its hour and a bit long runtime. They go to a prison planet and find Azimuth's assistant, Azimuth being the creator of the Omnitrix for you non-Ben 10 fans. Vilgax shows up again as the main villain, even though he's kind of just there to fill the villain role. It's not really about him, which kind of sucks to be honest. I wish we got more of him in it, but whatever. After finally tracking down Azimuth, they end up on a planet surrounded by Vilgax's entire robot army, which apparently consists of like 12 guys, and eventually Azimuth helps Ben out and unlocks him the coolest alien yet.
I'm not just big, I'm way big.
And he yeets Vilgax all the way into space. It is such a cool finale, and it will never not be awesome. I'm not sure if it was just on the DVD, but for some reason, they gave you the choice of like 3 separate intros with a different alien to pick. Fuck zodiac signs, which Secret of the Omnitrix alien did you guys pick? More recently, the Ben 10 reboot also had a movie of its own, which is essentially just a demake of Secret of the Omnitrix called Ben 10 versus the Universe. There's a few other long specials they've made for the show, but this is the only one they refer to as a movie, and so I watched it. I really wish I didn't. All I want to say about this one is that it makes me appreciate Secret of the Omnitrix even more. And while we're on Cartoon Network, let's talk about the regular show movie. This series has always done an amazing job of fitting this absolutely batshit plot into an 11-minute time slot. And it's really impressive that they managed to maintain that in a movie format for like an hour. To flesh the story out, they delve a little into Mordecai and Rigby's past, where Rigby actually forged a rejection letter for Mordecai after he got into college and Rigby didn't. I'm like, fuck Rigby, man. He sucks. So Mordecai and Rigby have to travel back to the past to prevent their science teacher from creating a time NATO in the future.
Oh! This is what you losers sound like, and nobody likes it. Oh!
I really love time travel, so that's always a plus with me. And it just fits right in with regular show because of how fucking crazy the show normally is. You don't even question it. And I love so much that the entire plot of the movie, which consists of a futuristic empire that involves the death of almost every major character in the series and time travel, only happens because one of Rigby's teachers was upset that he ruined a volleyball game back in high school. Them going into the past and seeing everybody wearing clothes makes you realize that everyone is just straight up naked in the future, like all the time. It just makes me realize that there was never an Adventure Time movie, which is kind of weird, right? I mean, surely that was like a given. Okay, on to Steven Universe, the movie, which was the biggest surprise for me, I have to admit, because I absolutely loved this one. Now, I've never seen Steven Universe because all I hear about it on the internet is just horrible things, but I absolutely loved this one. And I am afraid for my life. The villain of this movie is the gem Spinel, who I have been exposed to more porn of on Twitter than any man ever should have. Initially, I was a bit upset this one was a musical, but it turns out the songs were really, really good. I just can't believe this one is a TV movie. It's visually so colorful and appealing to look at, with a story that feels very grand, but they keep it very close to the characters. And I know I haven't seen the show, so I can't really talk, but this seems right up my alley. I was just really, really surprised by this one. It did the impossible, because it made me actually want to watch Steven Universe. Next is the We Bare Bears movie. I've never seen the show before, but the general vibe I get from the premise is that it's about 3 bears wanting to become influencers. which is probably the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. In the first like 20 minutes, they do a live stream where they dab and Fortnite dance. How have I not seen this before? It's got a reasonably simple plot to boot as well. It's just about the three bears becoming wanted fugitives and having to flee the country. There's a scene later in the movie where they go to a dance party filled with famous internet animals. And it's just incredible to me that they managed to do it without feeling cringy or super out of touch. And I think that's more so because they're acknowledging that they're cringe.
Wow, this is so cringy. Is this for real, dude?
So it came off as really funny, and I really appreciated that about it. I don't have too much to say about this one. I just thought it was really cute and wholesome, and I definitely recommend it.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Bears.
Okay, let's go back in time a little bit for the G.I. Joe movie, which, Jesus Christ, I've written a lot about this one. Fuck. This one came out a year after the Transformers movie, but they were actually being worked on at the same time. It was supposed to be a theatrical release, and you definitely can tell when watching the movie, but because the Transformers movie flopped so fucking hard, and because of the number of delays they had with its production, it ended up just going straight to video, but they also broadcast it as like 5 separate episodes or something like that. But even despite all of that, this one is really great, and this is coming from someone who really does not give a shit about G.I. Joe. They introduced like giant snake monsters and this whole underground snake society called Cobra La, which is worked into Cobra Commander's backstory in that he's just a snake monster, which again, I'm not sure if any of that was in the show, but it feels like a very big departure from it, and it works well in giving it that whole grand movie adventure vibe. In a very weird way, I think the G.I. Joe movie is actually somewhat responsible for some of the most traumatic scenes in Transformers the movie. Originally, the idea was that they were going to kill off Duke, because he has this whole scene where he gets stabbed by Serpentor and gives a dramatic dying speech to his brother, and the Hasbro guys like that so much that they recommended they do it with the Transformers movie as well, which is why Optimus Prime dies. But because of the incredibly negative reaction to Optimus Prime's death in the Transformers movie, they ended up backtracking by the time the G.I. Joe movie finally came out. So in the scene where Duke gets stabbed, they sort of just add this really shoehorned in dub to say that he's just in a coma.
Yo, Joe. He's gone into a coma.
And then at the end, you don't even see him again, but they just add in some voiceover to say that he's woken up.
This is Doc at headquarters. Great news. Duke's come out of his coma.
See, he's totally fine, guys. It's just such a funny contrast to the Transformers movie because there is like a tiny, minuscule amount of blood in this one. I feel like if I had grown up with G.I. Joe, I would have hated this movie a lot less as a kid because no one dies incredibly violently. The next one is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This one stood out to me a lot because it has a surprisingly high production value for a straight-to-video movie. Like, the animation is easily good enough to be theatrical quality, and they even made some original music just for the movie, like the absolute banger that is It's Terror Time Again. I feel like this one totally could have gotten away with going to cinemas. I mean, if Tom and Jerry could. The hook of this one is that this time, the monsters are real.
This time, the monsters are real.
Which I'm sure by this point, Scooby-Doo was done a billion times, but like, it was exciting back then, okay? This one sees Mystery Inc. getting back together after Daphne starts a ghost investigation show, which was honestly one of my favorite parts about it. It made me think of like a Scooby-Doo series where they run one of those like shitty YouTube ghost hunting channels, eating Scooby snacks at 3 a.m. challenge. So in looking for a real ghost, they end up on a spooky island. There's this gardener character that works on the house they stay in that they are so rude to for no reason, or because he got mad at them for 5 seconds after Scooby smashed probably like 12 years worth of gardening work.
I spent a whole week on that planter.
And they continue to accuse him throughout the entire movie for being the culprit, even though he is so sweet to them for no reason. My boy did nothing wrong. I really enjoyed the first half of the movie, but I think it kind of lost me when they revealed the whole twist of it, which is that, let me see if I'm getting this right, the 2 women they meet on the island are actually cursed to be cat monsters because they called upon the cat god's powers 100 years ago to banish pirates and colonists who came to the island and fed all of them to crocodiles, and are now using voodoo magic to steal the life force of the Scooby-Doo gang. And also there are zombies on the island. Much like with Pokemon, they've gone on to do like 20 bajillion Scooby-Doo movies since, with the gang encountering much scarier monsters like John Cena. I also watched Totally Spies the movie. For some reason. This one's a prequel like the Powerpuff Girls movie in that it's sort of like an origin story of how the girls were blackmailed into becoming spies. That sounds like a joke, but for some reason it isn't.
Regardless, I'd be happy to help you out of your current situations.
Provided you help me as well.
I can't believe it! We're being blackmailed by a bald geezer!
I found it kind of hard to get through this one though, because, I mean, if Teen Titans has like an anime influence, then Totally Spies is like a shut-in otaku. It goes like 100 miles an hour. I can't even process all the things that happen in this one.
Decision? What decision?
The plot is about an evil model who was like rejected because everyone thought he was fucking ugly, and now he's created a beauty machine that turns everybody into slaves that spend their entire day praising him. And everybody talks like this all the time. It's so great! And there are some pretty funny, like, standout moments where it just gets so fucking weird that it's just hilarious. But I just think Totally Spies isn't my thing, which is okay, because I am a 21-year-old man. Anyway, back to talking about cartoons. Next up is Dexter's Lab Ego Trip, which was originally made as the series finale for the show. But, I mean, you can't just make something this good and then not make more of it, okay? This one's a time travel movie, so of course I love it. It sees Dexter traveling to the future to check out how cool he is, only to find out that he's this wimpy piece of shit that gets regularly publicly flogged by his arch nemesis Man-Dog, which now that I'm saying out loud is kind of fucked up. And this eventually leads to him teaming up with another 2 versions of his future self in order to make sure that he ends up saving the world. This one's only 48 minutes long, so I think I'm really stretching the definition of movie here, but they do pack a hell of a lot into it for its short runtime, so I'm gonna count this one anyway, okay? And also, I watched this on an hour-long upload on YouTube where somebody recorded the commercials, which was really cool. Felt like I was traveling through time. And I just want to say, Ego Trip is like, whoever came up with that title is the real genius here. Next, we have Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension. All of the best movie specials have this one big reveal that the show's been like building up to that they finally do. Like seeing 666's handsome face for the first time in Secret of the Omnitrix. And in this one, the big moment is Phineas and Ferb finally finding out that Perry is a secret agent and have to team up with him against Dr. Doofenshmirtz in an alternate universe where he actually accomplished something.
Yes! I knew it! Wait a minute, I'm confused. Why does their platypus fight so good?
The songs are great, and even as someone who hasn't seen the show fully, it still felt like a crossover getting to see Perry and Phineas and Ferb working together. Again, not much to say about this one, but I just wanted to bring it up anyway, because, I mean, how could you not? They did a sequel to it very recently in 2020 with Candace Against the Universe, which was a straight-to-Disney Plus movie, that came out, I think, 7 years after the show ended, but sort of just takes place during it at some point. I don't know, I don't think Phineas and Ferb even has continuity. In the last video, I ended up having some movies I just completely cut out because I didn't like what I had to say about them, but I felt really bad about not including them anyway. Those were the My Little Pony movie. Yeah, I did watch that. And a Goofy movie. I did watch the Jimmy Neutron movie, and I feel like I probably got a lot of comments about that, but I didn't find out till after I watched it that the show came after the movie, and I didn't want to include that because otherwise movies like Barnyard would be eligible, and there is no fucking way in hell I'm ever watching Barnyard again. But I think this time I still want to mention them, even if I have like one sentence to say about them. So I watched the Kim Possible movie, So the Drama, which I really enjoyed. I think this was meant to be the series finale, but they ended up giving it another season anyway because people liked it too much. The Kids Next Door movie, Operation Zero, is nightmare fuel, and I cannot believe Cartoon Network would ever air anything this awesome. And The Loud House also got a movie on Netflix, I think in 2019, which I just randomly put on one day and surprisingly enjoyed, despite all of the wonderful things I've heard about the Loud House. Okay, and now we can move on to our third and final segment, which I forgot to talk about in the beginning, which are series finales and revivals, which is just a way for me to structure the video a bit more easily. Don't think about it too much. I'm grouping these two together because some of them kind of overlap, but really what we're looking for here are like big epic endings to shows and ones that came out many, many years after the show ended to finally wrap up any remaining loose ends. The first one is my favorite of all time, which is Invader Zim Enter the FLORPUS. There was this really beautiful period in like 2019 when Netflix was just doing a bunch of like revival movies of old Nickelodeon shows. There was another one they did with Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, which doesn't really count because it's only like half an hour, but I watched that one when it came out and it is great. But I watched the Invader Zim movie on the bus to school one day and I absolutely fell in love with it.
My name is Dib Membrane. I'm 12 years old.
And 3 years later, I still have not watched the fucking show. The plot of Enter My FLORPUS is Zim finally finding out that the Tallest put him on Earth to get rid of him because they hate him so much.
It is Isaac!
And so to get their attention, he teleports Earth directly in front of their flight path, which causes a big tear in space-time called a FLORPUS, so that they have to acknowledge him. It's so colorful and well animated, and as I said last time, it looks really expensive and well made for a TV movie. I love that they acknowledge the humongous gap between the show ending and when this came out by explaining that Zim was sitting in a toilet the entire time. For 13 years.
You've been in your house, sitting in a toilet all this time?
Yes,
Like, the whole time?
that's right.
And then on top of that, his nemesis Dib has just been sitting in a chair waiting for him to return and has turned into a League of Legends player. This one doesn't really feel like it was supposed to be a series finale or anything. Like, they have one last chance to tie over any lingering plot points left over from the show, which leads me to think that the show probably doesn't end on a cliffhanger like Samurai Jack did or anything like that. It just feels like an opportunity to have one last stupid adventure with all these characters, because it doesn't really feel like an ending to the series at all, which is fine. It doesn't need to be. And I may be wrong in saying this, but it almost feels like it sort of left the door open for a revival for the show. They don't really touch the status quo all that much. I think the biggest thing that happens is that Zim finds out the tallest aren't actually coming to Earth. They don't even have Professor Membrane acknowledge that aliens are real, despite everything that fucking happens in the movie. I don't know, I could be completely off base here, but that's just what it feels like to me. This one overall easily has to be one of my favorites, if not the best one I've seen. It does not stop being hysterical from start to finish. Even if it didn't lead to a series revival, which again, whether that was the plan or not, I don't know. It's fine. I'm just glad this exists at all. I have got to go and check this show out. The next one is a bit of a goof on my part, which is Hey Arnold the movie. This one is a bit debatable for where it should be placed because it did come out in theaters, so I guess it should have been in the last video, but it was also intended to be the series finale, so that's my excuse. It was definitely not at all because I forgot about it last time. Shut up. Originally, it was just supposed to be a 3-part series finale, but after the success of Rugrats the movie, Nickelodeon obviously decided at the last minute that they should try and release it in theaters, but they didn't really give the animators enough time to make substantial changes to it to make it look really cinematic, so that's why it pretty much just looks like an episode of the show with some shading chucked in there. This one did stand out to me because I got kind of like a more adult, mature vibe from it, which I found surprising from like a Nickelodeon cartoon, which is not a slight at any other shows by any means, it just sort of came off to me that way. And looking a little bit into it, it kind of seems like that's Hey Arnold's whole deal, and I could really tell what it is that makes the show stand out just from this hour-long movie. So I guess turning the series finale into like a political spy espionage thriller seems a bit out of left field, and this one's all about Arnold trying to save his neighborhood from an evil businessman, even though they end up destroying half of it by the end anyway, but that's not important. Obviously, I've never seen Hey Arnold, but within like the first 5 minutes, there's a guy that tries to turn it into a musical, and they tell him to shut the fuck up, so that has already put the show in my good books. Originally, there was supposed to be a sequel that followed this one called Hey Arnold the Jungle Movie, but after the first one kind of underperformed a bit at the box office, it was scrapped all the way up until 2017, where it was finally revived by Nickelodeon years after the show ended. Around that time where cartoon revivals were sort of getting popular. Unlike Enter the FLORPUS, this one does feel like it wraps up a lot of plot points left over from the show. If the first movie kind of threw the realism out the window, then the Jungle movie goes completely insane with it, because this one's about Arnold and his whole class going to another country to look for Arnold's lost parents. And this is the kind of show where I genuinely didn't know if they were going to be dead or not. But no, they're fine. They've just been sleeping for 9 years, which I'm pretty sure some people found kind of lame, but you know what? The kid has been through enough. I think he deserves something nice. I think I like this one a little bit more than the 2002 movie, but they're both really great. But I just can't imagine how satisfying this movie would have been as a fan after like 15 years of waiting to find out what happened to his parents. I was really enjoying that trend of bringing back old cartoons for one last special. It slowed down in the last couple years, but I think we need to bring it back. We had a good thing going, okay? The next one I have is Ed, Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show, which serves as a massive hour-and-a-half long finale for the series. This movie never slows down. I don't think it goes like a minute and a half without someone being horribly injured. I've never seen Ed, Edd and Eddy, but obviously after years of hearing about it, this is pretty much exactly what I expected.
Sorry, I missed it. What's it called?
It's commonly known as a sexton, Eddie.
This one follows the trio running for their lives after doing some horrible act that was so bad they won't even tell us what it is, that's only ever vaguely shown to us in the beginning through this strangely terrifying intro. I am genuinely amazed there is not a single point in this movie where they stop it for a little while. It is just continuous slapstick for the entire hour and a half. And the movie cuts between them and all of the people chasing them down to try and murder them.
In case of movie break glass.
Bingo! A peanut?
Cheap movie. This one's big moment comes at the end where we finally get to meet Eddie's brother, who they spend the entire movie looking for, who turns out to be a massive piece of shit. As far as I understand, he's the only adult we actually see in the entire series. And so seeing them basically murder him at the end is incredibly satisfying. I can't really tell you how effective it is as a series finale because I obviously haven't seen the show, but it basically has like 10 minutes of plot, maybe at the beginning, if we want to be generous, and then mostly just an hour and 15 minutes of excessive violence, which I have a strange feeling is about what the show is like.
We're finally in, baby!
And it only took 130 episodes, 4 specials, and a movie, Eddie.
Alright, finally we can talk about Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo, which I'm counting as the series finale because the real one is shit. It came out a year after the show ended, so I'm counting that as eligible. The biggest reason being that it finally gave us a Starfire and Robin kiss after 65 episodes, and then they still have the audacity to fake it out twice. In this one, the Titans go on vacation to Japan after some guy attacked their tower, and end up discovering that the chief of police in Japan, who has his own like Power Rangers squad, has actually kidnapped an old supervillain and is forcing him to create ink criminals for them to capture over and over. And while they're there, they get attacked by various Japanese staples like Godzilla and Catgirls. For a series that's so heavily influenced by anime, it just makes sense that they'd end up in Japan eventually. Rewatching it again now, you can kind of see that it's a bit obvious that maybe Cartoon Network didn't give them a super huge budget for it, which I think is the only thing that kind of holds it back for me. Not that it's not good, but I just think for like a movie-long special, the action scenes are kind of a bit hit and miss for me. But that being said, they do still get some really nice looking moments out of it. Overall though, it's a really fun adventure, and I'm super glad that Teen Titans even got a TV movie, even if the bits with Beast Boy briefly turn it into a cringe compilation. Then we have Turtles Forever, the sort of series finale for the 2003 TMNT show, which I'm gonna count as the ending because it came out a few months after the show ended. I skipped this one a while back when I did a video talking about TMNT movies, and now I'm kind of regretting that I did because holy shit, this thing is kind of awesome. It was released to commemorate some anniversary I'm forgetting for the Turtles series, so it's basically like a multiverse crossover event with the original 80s Turtles and the 2003 Turtles, but then by the end they have Shredder trying to destroy all of the Turtles throughout the multiverse, so they end up going to the dimension of the original comic Turtles as well. They really go the extra mile here by doing like endless layers of fan service. Doing stuff like this is sort of like a balancing act, but they do a really good job of giving enough time to both Turtle teams. A lot of the humor is at the expense of the original Turtles, but they still find a way to make them look cool anyway. It actually reminded me a lot of the Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go movie that came out a while after it, except the writers of this one actually like the original Turtles. And finally, we have A Rise of the TMNT, the movie, which is super recent and came at a really good time because I only just finished watching the show like a couple months ago. Look, a show I actually have seen. I really enjoyed Rise overall, but the best episodes to me were the ones where they actually focused on the overarching plot with Shredder and the Foot. I wasn't super keen about all the filler episodes in between, which are like Monster of the Week sort of thing, which the show unfortunately has a lot of. I would say probably the majority, honestly. So obviously this movie delivers on the best parts of the show because it is all plot, baby. I'm not actually sure if this one is the series finale yet because it remains to be seen if they're going to do more of this show, but if it is an amazing one. This show has always had bursts of absolutely incredible animation, but because it's a Netflix movie, they definitely gave it that little bit more budget to just make the whole thing look fucking incredible. The animation in this is so good, my eyes were coming. This one's all about time travel. Yes! Where Casey Jones comes back from the future in order to warn the Turtles about Krang, or the Krang in this movie because there's 3 of them. It opens with this gorgeous future sequence where like everything is fucked and Leo is like clutching his chest, it's bleeding. I am a 21-year-old man and I still get excited when kids shows have blood and say swear words.
We still got a ninja's greatest weapon. Hope. That and a badass mystic warrior.
This one only just came out, so it is really promising to see that movies like this are still being made. This is exactly what I am talking about, and we need way more of these. Okay, and that's about everything I wanted to talk about. Man, it is a load off my chest to say that. I have been recording for 3 hours, and that's not even all of them. Because as it turns out, there are a lot of cartoons out there. I have been watching these for basically a month, and I still missed all of these. And again, that's just the ones I know of. I am sure I missed like another 100. Just to wrap up, even though I said last time that I'm more than happy for these to be on streaming now so we can get ones as good as Invader Zim or Rise of the TMNT, I can't lie and say I'm not going to miss having movies like these at the cinemas, but I'm sure there'll still be the occasional exception, like when the inevitable Rick and Morty movie comes out. But as I said, I'm just happy they get made at all. And Netflix, please keep doing more of those cartoon revival movies, please. That's all I ask. Anyway, thanks for watching.